So this is going to be our third Duras Gambit, and the point of the Duras Gambit is to open the F file. And we're going to try to open the F file, and this player, who is 2200 plus blitz rating, came up with an interesting idea, and it's been played many times against me actually, of playing g4 after the pawn capture and protecting that pawn and having kind of a reverse King's Gambit. And it's a very difficult thing to defend against, and it looks like it ought to win automatically for white, which makes this kind of an idiotic opening to play. However, you're going to see that just with very careful play, if white makes one misstep, what's going to happen is there's going to be a tremendous amount of play on black's part. And the h3, f3 thing is going to come into play, but in a whole different type of ballpark now. And so what we're going to do is start our handy dandy engine and proceed with the gambit. That's a mandatory move, otherwise you get a serious queen check resulting on a near fool's mate. And of course he's playing for that check with the bishop now, so we block it. I guess he doesn't play g4 in the second move, it's more like the third. So this is a variation on the same thing. So it says it gives white a good advantage. So the right move was d5 according to the computer, and all he has to play here is d4 to get a good advantage, and he doesn't come up with the appropriate move. I play e5 as kind of an experiment, and I ought to lose the game because of it, but that's only if you're stockfish. So he pushes, and now as you see, his advantage is still there but dwindling. Now it says d4 is the right move. Instead he plays d3 and we just capture the pawn, and he goes for this big circuitous kingside attack with a trap, and we just take back. Now black has an advantage. And strangely, it looks like black's kingside is all weak, and you ought to be able to attack the g6 pawn, stuff like that. And in reality, none of that's true. So he's going to push pawn here, which is the preferred computer move. And it says I should just play d5 because that pawn is pinned, but I advance the pawn. And that gives me what I consider to be a strong position. So I'm going to be able to reinforce that pawn. I'm going to be able to develop in castle queenside probably, and he's going to have limited capability of developing, especially when he starts moving the same piece twice. I'm making the recommended computer move here. That says he wants to try to exchange off that bishop, or that's what's suggested by the computer. Now you see, just with queen to e2, all he had to do was play d4 on like the fourth move or something, and he would have had an advantage of close to 2, and now I'm getting up there simply because he's moved the same piece twice and he's put his queen in an awkward spot. And knight to c6 to d4 becomes a strong threat. He has no way to cover that square effectively because there's a fork on d4. And his bishop's occupying a square his knight should be on, so he moves his king. So that's an interesting move. The truth is that there are a whole variety of things that could be occurring, with this. Like I have a threat of g4. So now I have what I consider to be an ideal position. I'm not playing the perfect computer moves, but I have a really strong, powerful, well-developed position where I'm capable of doing a lot of damage just by simple developing moves. He's going to triple attack that pawn. Instead I castle queenside. If you notice, the computer recommended pushing it, but I just am doing natural good developing moves, and being up 2 like this is tantamount to a victory. So see, I pushed. We're just maintaining solid play and make the correct recapture here. So now he's double attacking a pawn that actually is triple attacking it, and going after the diagonal that my king and queen are on. So I just push. Now it says he should try to exchange this off. He loses king. So we have this powerful f3 square. I think that was the third point in our cover sheet. Once again, it says exchange it off, but no, he goes to the 7th rank, which is tempting. And according to the computer, I go to the wrong square, but I'm still up 3.5. So you're beginning to see a lot of checks happen here. So now basically the game's over. And we won't belabor the rest of it because it ends in a pretty sound destruction of this person. If you look at all the threads involved, you know, it's just awesome. I mean, we have pawn takes pawn, we have rook to h2, you know. We have our g4 square covered so that the queen exchange doesn't really happen. If we get a knight on f3 eventually, we're going to have, you know, a threat of d2 mate. He's just completely destroyed. So that's the end of this example of how fast the Duras Gambit can turn around on somebody.